They say you know when you've met the one. That's what I told myself the first time I saw Daniel, standing in the aisle of that little bookstore off Main Street, flipping through a dusty copy of East of Eden. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and when he looked up and caught me staring, his smile was so warm it made my knees feel weak. Good book, he said, tapping the cover before sliding it back onto the shelf. I nodded, awkwardly clutching the romance novel I had been pretending to read. Yeah, I love Steinbeck. He raised an eyebrow. Really? Most people your age wouldn't touch him. I blushed. I didn't actually like Steinbeck. But in that moment, I would have agreed with anything just to keep him talking. We chatted for nearly an hour in that bookstore. About books, about coffee, about how he had just moved to Texas for work. He didn't say much about what he did exactly. Something about investments, helping small businesses restructure. But his confidence made me believe he was important, successful. When he finally asked me to coffee, I didn't even think twice. Our first date was at a small cafe near the river. He wore a navy blue sweater that brought out the green in his eyes. And he listened when I spoke. Really listened, nodding, asking questions, remembering tiny details like how I took my coffee with cinnamon, and how I loved old movies. I think you're remarkable, Melanie. He told me that day, reaching across the table to touch my hand. It had been so long since anyone had looked at me like that. So long since I felt seen. We started seeing each other nearly every day. He would surprise me at work with flowers, leave notes on my windshield telling me I was beautiful, that he missed me. On weekends, we would take long drives out into the Texas Hill Country, music low, his hand on my knee as he talked about his dreams of building a life with someone who believed in him. I thought I was that someone. 3 months in, he told me he loved me. We were sitting on a picnic blanket by the lake, the sun setting in soft pinks and oranges. I love you, Mel, he whispered, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. My heart thudded so hard I thought it would burst. I love you too, I whispered back, and it felt true. 6 months in, he proposed. It was in that same bookstore. Of all places. He had arranged with the owner to let us in after closing. Fairy lights were strung along the shelves, and a small table was set with 2 cups of coffee and a single rose. He got down on one knee, holding a small velvet box. Melanie, I don't want to spend another day without you by my side. Will you marry me? Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, choking out, yes, yes, of course. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and for a moment, it felt like every romance novel I'd ever read was coming true. We had a small wedding in my grandmother's backyard. Close friends, family, string lights, and a simple cake. Daniel cried when he saw me in my dress, whispering, "You're perfect," before kissing my forehead. For the first year, it felt like a fairy tale. He would make me breakfast in bed, leave sticky notes on the mirror telling me I was loved, and text me during the day just to say he missed me. He traveled often for work, sometimes gone for days at a time, but he always called, always FaceTimed, always made me feel like I was his whole world. But slowly, quietly, the cracks began to show. It started with small things. A charge on our joint card from a gas station in Georgia, when he said he was in Houston. A hotel receipt I found in his jacket pocket, with a different city listed. "Babe, it's just business," he said with that easy smile, kissing my forehead. "You worry too much." And I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him, because the alternative was unthinkable. I tried to push down the nagging feeling in my chest every time he left, tried to ignore the way he flinched when I asked about the business trips, tried to swallow the discomfort when I noticed withdrawals from our savings, always labeled business expense in his careful handwriting. "I'm building something for us. Mel," he would say, hugging me close, his voice warm against my ear. "Trust me." And I did. God, I did. Because I loved him. Because I believed him. Because I wanted our fairy tale to stay real. But the thing about lies is, they don't stay buried forever. And the man I thought I knew was about to shatter everything I believed in. They say love comes when you least expect it. Alicia wasn't looking for love when she met Daniel. She was simply trying to keep her head above water. After a messy breakup, she had moved to Savannah to start over, working at a small marketing firm while living in a modest one-bedroom apartment she could barely afford. Most evenings were spent alone, cooking cheap meals and watching reruns to fill the silence. On Sundays, she volunteered at the local church pantry, helping distribute food to families in need. It was there that Daniel walked into her life, carrying a box of canned goods, wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, with a crooked, warm smile that reached his eyes. "Need a hand with that?" he asked, his voice warm. "I've got it," she said, shifting the box stubbornly. But he reached out and took it from her effortlessly. "Let me," he said again, and she let him. Daniel started showing up every Sunday. He would help unload boxes, carry heavy bags for elderly women, and chat with the children as they picked up bread and fruit. He and Alicia would sneak cups of coffee in the church kitchen, laughing about the chaos in the pantry, exchanging small stories about their lives. She learned that he was from Texas, that he worked in consulting, and that he traveled often to care for his aging mother. He learned that she loved watching the sunrise over the river, that she was rebuilding her life, and that she had dreams of starting her own business someday. He listened, really listened. After months of loneliness, Alicia found herself looking forward to those Sunday mornings, to the way Daniel's eyes crinkled when he smiled, to the way his presence made the world feel less heavy. One Sunday, as they were closing up, Daniel turned to her, wiping his hands on a towel. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? Outside of this place, I mean." Alicia hesitated. Fear from past hurt made her cautious, but something in his eyes felt safe. "Sure," she replied softly. They met at a small cafe by the river the next morning, the air warm with the scent of cinnamon rolls and coffee. They talked for hours, watching the water glitter in the sunlight. Daniel told her about his mother, about how work required travel, but how he wanted to settle down. He said he was looking for a partner who would understand that sometimes work meant sacrifice. Alicia told him about her dreams, her fears, her struggles to find her place in the world. "I think you're amazing, Alicia," Daniel said, brushing a crumb from her lip with his thumb. Alicia felt her heart stir for the first time in a long time. Daniel became her sunrise. He would text her in the mornings, "Thinking of you." He would call her at night, "I miss your voice." When he was in town, he would bring her flowers, cook her dinner, and take her on long drives to Tybee Island, where they would sit on the sand and watch the waves in the dark. One night, under a sky littered with stars, he told her he loved her, his voice trembling as he kissed her forehead. And Alicia said it back, allowing hope to bloom inside her again. 6 months later, Daniel took her to the river at dawn, the sky painted pink and gold. He knelt on one knee, pulling out a small ring with a modest diamond, his eyes wet with tears. "Alicia, you are the light I've been waiting for in my life. I don't want to live another day without you. Will you marry me?" Alicia's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, yes, Daniel." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the sun rose, the world bathed in warmth. They married in a small ceremony at the church where they met. With a handful of friends, and the pastor present, Daniel wore a gray suit, smiling as he watched Alicia walk down the aisle in a borrowed white dress. They exchanged vows, promising to love each other in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. When they kissed, the small congregation clapped, and for a moment, Alicia allowed herself to believe in forever. Daniel moved into Alicia's modest apartment, telling her he needed to stay close for work, but would travel often to Texas to care for his mother. She missed him when he was gone, but he would call every night, telling her he loved her and couldn't wait to come home. He left her notes on the fridge, small "I love you" scribbles on post-its, and sent photos of himself cooking for his mother, smiling into the camera. Sometimes, he would leave small gifts for her to find, a necklace on her pillow, a book she had mentioned wanting on the counter, and each time, Alicia fell in love with him a little more. But shadows always find a way in. Alicia began to notice credit card bills higher than she remembered, with charges in cities Daniel never mentioned. Hotels, restaurants, gas stations. When she asked him, Daniel would smile, kiss her forehead and say, "Work stuff. Baby, nothing for you to worry about." Alicia tried to believe him, but sometimes in the dark, when she thought he was asleep, she would hear him whispering on the phone in low, tense tones. "Yeah, I'm here." No, she doesn't know. She would lie there, pretending to sleep, her heart pounding, fear curling cold in her stomach. So Alicia ignored the signs. Because she loved him. Because Daniel made her feel seen, cherished, needed. Because she wanted to believe that this love was real, that he was real. But love, she would later learn, can blind even the strongest hearts. And sometimes, the truth is the last thing you want to see. They always said the hardest part of lying was keeping track of the lies. For Daniel, it was never that hard. He had learned early that if he looked people in the eye and smiled, they would believe almost anything. That was how he managed to marry 2 women in 2 different states. In Texas, with Melanie, he was the doting husband, the ambitious businessman. He left sticky notes on her mirror, brought her flowers, and kissed her softly before leaving for business trips. Melanie looked at him with those trusting eyes, believing every word he said. In Georgia, with Alicia, he was the gentle husband, the man who volunteered at church, the one who wanted a family and cooked dinner, leaving small gifts to remind her she was loved. Alicia would smile, her eyes lighting up whenever he walked through the door, telling him he was the best thing that ever happened to her. Neither woman knew the other existed. Managing the logistics was easy for him. He carried two phones, one for work and one for home. He used separate credit cards, separate travel accounts, maintaining the illusion for each wife that he was a man building a life for them. In Texas, he told Melanie he was flying out to secure investment deals. In Georgia, he told Alicia he was traveling to care for his sick mother. Whenever suspicion crept into their voices, he would wrap his arms around them, look into their eyes, and whisper, "Trust me." And they always did. Money was always tight, but Daniel found ways to keep both lives afloat. Melanie had an inheritance she kept in a joint account for future investments. He took small amounts, labeling them business expenses, careful never to take too much at once. Alicia had excellent credit. He opened cards in her name while she was at work, using them to pay for flights, hotels, and dinners to maintain the lifestyle necessary to keep up the illusion in both states. He told himself he was providing for them, but deep down, he knew the only person he was providing for was himself. Cracks began to form, no matter how careful he tried to be. Melanie would question charges she didn't recognize. Gas station in Georgia. "Daniel, I thought you were in Houston." He would chuckle, kiss her on the forehead, and say, "Probably a routing error, babe." She would frown, her eyes clouding with doubt, but eventually she would let it go. Alicia would call while he was in Texas with Melanie, and he would let it ring, claiming it was work. Later, he would step outside and whisper into the phone, "I miss you too, baby," while checking over his shoulder. Sometimes, he would watch Melanie reading on the couch, waiting for him, her eyes lighting up when he walked in the door. Sometimes, he would see Alicia humming softly in the kitchen as she cooked, turning to smile at him with warmth in her eyes. And for a fleeting moment, he would feel a stab of guilt. But it would pass, because he told himself they needed him. They needed his love, his protection, his plans. They just didn't know it yet. What Daniel didn't account for was fear. Fear that one day he would slip. Fear that one day they would find each other. Fear that one day everything he had built would crumble around him. So he worked harder, lied smoother, and planned meticulously, determined to keep control of the life he had crafted. Because for Daniel, it had never really been about love. It had always been about control, about survival, and he would do anything to keep it. Alicia never considered herself a suspicious person. She trusted easily, loved deeply, and believed in giving second chances. But something about Daniel's recent behavior was off. He had been traveling more often, gone for longer periods, and when she asked, he would give vague answers, pressing a kiss to her forehead and saying, "Just trust me." Then the credit card bills started arriving. Charges at gas stations and hotels in Texas, restaurants in cities she had never visited, and amounts that didn't match the story he gave. She tried to ignore it. She wanted to believe in him. But at night, as she lay awake, Alicia's mind replayed the small inconsistencies, the hurried goodbyes, the tension in his shoulders whenever she mentioned money. One afternoon, while doing laundry, she found a receipt in his jeans pocket from a flower shop in Texas with a handwritten note. "For Mel, love you." Alicia's breath caught. Mel. Hands shaking, she placed the receipt on the counter and stared at it, tears blurring the ink. "I spent the whole day preparing for our anniversary dinner. I cooked Daniel's favorite meal, cleaned the house until it sparkled, and put on the blue dress he loved. The one he said made me look like the sky. I lit candles and waited. And waited. When the clock struck 9, I called him. It went to voicemail. At 10, he finally called back. His voice was tired, distant. "Babe, I'm stuck in Houston with a client. I'm so sorry, can we celebrate tomorrow?" I told him it was okay, that I understood. But as I hung up, I felt something crack inside me. Later, I opened the joint account to pay the electricity bill and saw a charge from a restaurant in Georgia. My breath caught. Why was he in Georgia when he said he was in Houston? I sat down at the kitchen table, the glow of the laptop screen blurring as tears spilled down my cheeks. Detective Carter had seen many cheating spouses, but something about Daniel set off alarms from the beginning. The request came from Melanie's cousin, who noticed her constant anxiety and the suspicious financial inconsistencies. He started tailing Daniel, tracking his flights, his car rentals, and his credit card transactions. In Georgia, Carter took photos of Daniel leaving an apartment complex, holding hands with Alicia, smiling like a devoted husband. In Texas, he photographed Daniel kissing Melanie's forehead, carrying grocery bags to her porch. Carter's camera captured everything: the lies, the double life, the stolen smiles. As he gathered evidence, he knew what this would do to the women who believed in Daniel. But the truth needed to be seen. The receipt from the flower shop haunted Alicia. She tried to ignore it, but the questions gnawed at her day and night. Finally, when Daniel was away, she found his second phone tucked in his backpack. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the messages. "I love you, Mel. Can't wait to see you. Happy anniversary, babe." Alicia felt like the floor was falling away beneath her. She dialed the number from the flower shop receipt, praying it would be a mistake. "Hello," a soft voice answered. "Who is this?" Alicia whispered. "This is Melanie. Who is this?" Alicia's knees buckled. I think we need to talk." When I opened the door and saw the woman standing there, clutching her phone, pale and trembling, I knew. She was pretty, with kind eyes filled with the same pain I felt in my chest. We sat at my kitchen table, the room heavy with silence as she slid the phone across to me. I scrolled through the messages, each one a dagger. "I miss you. I'll be home soon. Love you, Mel." Home to me. To her. To us. I covered my face, sobbing as the truth shattered every memory I thought was safe. Alicia showed me the receipt, her hands shaking. "He's been lying to both of us," she whispered. And as I looked into her eyes, I realized we weren't enemies. We were victims. Together, we decided we wouldn't let him continue this. Melanie and Alicia sat side by side in the lawyer's office, the weight of betrayal hanging over them like a storm cloud. The lawyer listened quietly, taking notes as they told their story. "You have a strong case for fraud and bigamy," he finally said. "We can pursue restitution for the financial damage. But this will be public. It will be hard." They looked at each other. The decision was clear. They signed the paperwork with trembling hands, initiating the lawsuit that would expose Daniel for what he was. The courtroom was cold, the lights too bright, making everything feel surreal as I took the stand. I told them about the man I loved, the life I built around him, and how it all crumbled with a single phone call from Alicia. I spoke about the money he drained, the lies he whispered as he kissed my forehead, the dreams he stole from me. When Alicia took the stand, her voice trembled as she described the credit cards, the promises, the flowers meant for me. The evidence was undeniable: photos, receipts, text messages, financial records showing how he lived two lives off the savings and trust we gave him. Daniel sat there, his face expressionless, as if this was just another business meeting. When asked if he had anything to say, he shrugged. "I did what I had to do." The judge found him guilty of fraud and bigamy, sentencing him to prison and ordering restitution. But as Alicia and I left the courthouse, the wind cold on our skin, we knew there were no real winners. We had lost something we would never get back. After the trial, Alicia moved back in with her parents in Savannah. The apartment she once shared with Daniel felt poisoned, each room echoing with memories of his lies. She would stand in the kitchen, where he once kissed her neck while she cooked, gripping the counter to keep herself from screaming. Bills she didn't recognize kept arriving, debts he had racked up in her name, piling higher than she could pay. At night, Alicia would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every "I love you," every whispered promise, every touch that once made her feel safe. Now those memories made her sick. She tried to go back to work, but whispers followed her. People who once smiled at her now avoided eye contact. She saw the headlines online. "Man marries 2 women in 2 states, commits fraud." Her picture was there, next to Melanie's, as if their pain was entertainment. Alicia started therapy, but every session left her raw, the wounds too deep to stitch shut. Some mornings, she couldn't get out of bed. Some nights, she thought about ending it, just to make the pain stop. She didn't, but the thought stayed with her. After the verdict, I moved out of the house I once shared with Daniel. I couldn't stay there. Every corner was haunted by him. The kitchen where he kissed my cheek while I cooked. The bed where he whispered, "Forever." The mirror where I found his notes telling me I was beautiful, even as he lied. I rented a small apartment on the edge of town, using what was left of my savings. After the legal fees, he left me to drown in. At night, I would sit by the window, watching the cars pass, wondering how many people lived double lives, how many women like me were out there, trusting, loving, blind. I got a job at a local clinic, trying to find pieces of myself again. But I was different now. I flinched when people touched me. I questioned every word, every promise, every smile. One afternoon, a letter arrived. From Daniel M. Location: State Correctional Facility. My hands shook as I opened it. Melanie, I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe me. I did what I had to do to survive. I loved you in my own way. I hope you can forgive me. I laughed a bitter, broken sound. Forgive him. He destroyed me. He destroyed Alicia. He destroyed himself. I crumpled the letter and threw it into the trash. They say time heals. But some wounds don't heal. They scab over. But beneath the surface, they bleed. I don't know if I will ever love again. I don't know if I will ever trust again. What I do know is this. I was a woman who loved a man who wasn't real. I was a woman who built a life on lies. I was a woman who learned that sometimes justice doesn't feel like justice. It feels like survival. And some days, survival is enough. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more stories.